Okay, so where we're holding, we were in the middle of, we started Midat HaZeirut, which is on chapter 2. Chapter 2.
3.
Chapter 3?
Yeah, we got to that.
Oh, right. Okay, right, true. We started chapter 3, which was about how does one acquire this, Sham, Baruch Hashem. I was getting worried. I thought you were off the derech or something. Okay. Just kidding, boy.
Sorry, I was in Rishus to read and give it back to Sean.
Okay, fine.
Hey.
Sean, you want to read?
Oh, wow. Well, Ari,
you could do it today. Sean has to, climb into it back. You can't just put him on the spot like that.
Yeah, it's unfair.
It's unfair.
Fine.
Okay, so let's start off with let's start from the beginning of the chapter because we had a big break. We'll start from the beginning of chapter 3. Okay, let's go.
2 methods are necessary for one who wishes to oversee his conduct. On the one hand, he must ponder what constitutes the true good that a person should choose and the true evil that he should flee from. On the other hand, he must see if his own deeds are good or evil. This applies both to deeds at the time of their performance and to deeds performed in the past.
Okay, there you got a lot of information there. Let's work slow. So we have two concepts here. One is, like we said, you have to search what is a good way of behavior and what's a bad way. The good way of behavior that I have to choose for myself and the bad way that I have to stay away. So I'll give you an example that last time I gave an example of a good attitude and a bad attitude. I want to give another example. So I've been reading throughout the Corona Pesach Corona. I was reading about Gdolim, different rabbis. So like I was reading about Rabbi Leib Guzman or Rabbi Shimshon Pinkus, and I found an interesting thing that they very much emphasize how they did not sleep a lot. Sean, you're not going to like this. They did not sleep a lot. Sleep was something that they kept away from. So they had very minimal sleep. So I realized to myself, I said, you know what? I have to be more aware how much I'm sleeping and make sure I don't sleep too much. Don't wake up like, particularly now with not having to rush to a minyan or anything like that. I can easily sleep in. I can wake up right before I have to learn and then daven after, or I could daven before I learn. Ari, right? So that's the 2 options, right? So the idea is to so I saw. You know what? Sleeping is something you shouldn't be doing a lot. You should try and minimize the sleep. Obviously, you have to take care of your health and you have to sleep the amount that you need to sleep. So if you feel you need more sleep, definitely you should do so. But you should make sure you're sleeping the amount that's needed and not just to sleep for no good purpose. Now, once you realize that, right? Let's say I saw, okay, sleep is not good. I want to try not to sleep so much. So now I saw what's the right thing. And now I want to try and chase that. And being lazy and sleeping in is bad. So I want to stay away from that. That's the first mindset, right? But if I wasn't aware of that, I would never work on the concept of not sleeping so much because I never thought, is sleep good or bad? As Joel Herman pointed out, and I told this to Ari, it's quite wild. Joel said to me that if you sleep, let's say you sleep 8 hours a day, 8 hours a night, and you cut it down to 6. So you get out through a whole year, you get an extra month to your year based on 2 hours a day.
With sleeping?
I don't know. I didn't ask him yet. I have to ask him. But he calculated that means you get an extra month in a year. Now, that's wild if you think about it. So, I mean, someone could have 12 months and someone would have 13 months. Now, let's say someone sleeps 10 hours a day compared to the guy that sleeps 6 hours. So the difference could be, I don't know, I guess it's 2 months, 2 extra months, right? Of time, productive time. Again, if we use our time properly. So that's a calculation that one has to think of. Again, I'm not saying I'm just using sleep as an example. I'm not saying that's the thing to focus on. I'm just using that as an example, something that I saw in my life. So here's something that I see what's good, what's bad, and then I have to know that the good I'm trying to chase and the bad I'm trying to stay away from. Okay? That's the first point. And you can use this on various things. You can use this on what you eat. You can use this on how you conduct yourself, what you speak about, whatever. Everyone can use it in their world. But I'm just using that example because for me, that made me try and focus more on waking up on time once I was reading about these rabbis, how they did not sleep. Really, to point out, it's not only rabbis. Obviously, it's anyone that's going to achieve things in life and be productive is people that obviously don't sleep so much. Right? So I'm just using rabbis because that's what I read about, but really it would apply to anyone that wants to achieve something. Okay, the second thing we said is the actions that we do, see if they're considered in the good or they're considered in the bad. Meaning you look, you say, am I a guy that that sleeps a lot? Am I not sleeping a lot, right? And then based on that, that's also at the time that I'm doing it, meaning I'm about to go and rest. So I think to myself, do I actually need this rest or I don't need this rest? And is it just because Corona is depressing me and I just have nothing to do, so I'm going to go sleep? Or is it because I'm actually tired and I try to do something and my eyes are shutting down on me, so I have to go to sleep? Right? That's at the time of the action. And then there's Shaloi B'Shas Ma'aseh, which means not at the time of the action. That means looking at your day and thinking, okay, how many hours did I sleep? I slept two hours, plus I had a night's sleep of 8 hours. That was pointless. I don't need 10 hours of sleep, right? And then that's after the action looking at it. And that's what he's going to explain. Okay, let's keep going.
At the time of their performance, he shouldn't perform any deed without weighing it on the scales of these aforementioned principles.
Like we said, you're about to go to sleep. Weigh it out. Say, wait a second. Do I need to go to sleep? Do I not? Do I need to eat this? Do I not need to eat this? Do I have to, should I be going to learn or should I continue watching the movie I'm watching? Do I have to, right? Do I have to follow the news crazy to this extent or not, right? That's at the time of the action. Okay, and then?
Regarding past deeds, he should recall all of his deeds and weigh them as well on the same scales. He must observe what they contain of evil to reject it and what of good to persevere in it and to strengthen himself through it. We find...
Yes, again, he's checking out after his actions. What did I do? Was that productive? Was that not productive? How did I go through it, right? How did I deal with it?
If he finds within them any wrongdoing, he must contemplate and investigate to determine what tactic he should use to turn aside from this wrongdoing and to cleanse himself of it. Okay,
so this is a very interesting point he's making. He's saying like this, that you have to look at it and you have to investigate which part of it was bad. And then you have to figure out a tactic. This is interesting that you have to use a tactic, which means most people, and this is a difference, again, we spoke about this, psychology and Torah. Most people think, or the approach that people take is as if you are always in complete control and anything wrong you do, it's because you decided to do that wrong thing. So when someone does something, we feel like, no, he deserves it because he decided to do it. We kind of treat people as if they have complete control over the actions. I'll give you a silly example. Someone posts on social media a racist joke, right? So he gets bashed by everyone and everyone calls him a bad person and he loses his job and whatever. There's a harsh reaction to that action to that person. And then you ask other people, did you ever make a silly joke? You know, a racist joke? And yeah, but I didn't put it on social media, right? So, okay, so this person did a mistake and they put it on social media. But everyone said, no, it's not a mistake. That's the choice they made. They made that choice. They have to pay for it, right? Which means we take this attitude as if that person had all calculations calculated out and they made a conscious decision. No, they had a desire. They had a stupidity in their head to put a stupid joke on a racist joke, and they went and made a racist joke on social media. They're stupid. They shouldn't have done it, but they're human, and humans make mistakes. We do not accept. We accept upon ourselves that we're humans, but we don't accept that others are humans. And if they make mistakes, we take completely as if that was a complete decision of theirs. So what the Mesilat Yesharim is pointing out here is you have to figure out tactics how to deal with the Yetzirah. It's not, I'll give you a simple example. There's a student that he usually wakes up early. He's an early riser. But right now, with the Corona, there's not really a lot happening. So for him to wake up early in the morning and get going is not really something he struggles. So he called me and he says, could we learn at 8:30 every morning? Now that's a tactic. Why? Because once he asks someone to learn with him at 8:30, he has to be up. So he's up at 8:30. He has no choice. He has to get up by 8:30. So today I called him and he wasn't up. He's, I slept through it won't happen again. But and he got up quickly and we learned. But the point is, it made him wake up because he knows he has to learn. So he used a tactic how to deal with sleeping in. You follow? You have to use a tactic when you're dealing with something. You have to use a tactic. A person wants to avoid drinking alcohol, let's say. So you have to use a tactic, which is don't have alcohol next to you. Don't have it in the house. Don't say, I made a decision, I'm not drinking any more alcohol, and that's it. Or every time he drinks alcohol, he puts $50 in tzedakah. He doesn't make a vow because then he's in trouble. He just does it kind of okay, if I drink, I put $50 into charity. Okay, so now it's not worth me having a shot because I'll have to put $50 into charity. So he holds himself back. So he's trying to create some tactics to allow himself to do it. Or he tells someone that he's gonna, he says, I'll prepare to learn something with you. So now he has to keep himself busy and he has to prepare. Whatever it is, you have to use tactics against the Yitzhar, and you can't think that you're strong. One of the big mistakes is when we underestimate our enemy. So when Israel went to war with Lebanon, second Lebanon war of Israel, I remember I was in yeshiva at the time, and we were listening to the radio very closely, and all the time you hear, another thing happened. The Israelis were getting really smashed, and at the time there was the Minister of Defense. His name was Amir Peretz, and he said to Nasrallah was the head of the Hezbollah. He said, "Remember my name," meaning I'm going to get you, right? So when that war was over, Nasrallah said there was someone that told me I should remember his name. I can't remember his name. What was his name? Like he was making fun of this Amir Peretz for threatening him. So they explained that the Israelis went into that war thinking Hezbollah is a joke, and they're not that serious, and then they realized, wow, they're a real army, and they're properly ready for this, and they prepared, and they trained, and everything. And the Israelis really went into that war underestimating the Hezbollah. But then they had to go, right after that, they had a operation in Gaza, and they said there'll be casualties, and it's dangerous, and these Arabs know what they're doing, and so on. And that operation was extremely successful from the Israeli Defense Force, right? And they explained because, again, this is all explaining it in a natural way, but that the Israeli army didn't go in with this arrogant approach of we are so good and they don't know anything. They went in rather that this is a serious enemy and we can't undermine it, right? One of the biggest mistakes when you go into a war or you go into a matching fight with someone is to underestimate your enemy, to underestimate who you're dealing with. Because if you underestimate who you're dealing with, you won't be prepared and you won't train properly and you won't be ready and you'll get knocked out. When a person does not underestimate his enemy, but realizes the enemy is strong and he knows how to fight and he has tactics, then a person is ready and he's aware and he's looking very carefully to see what's the person gonna do. So same too in our private lives. We have to realize desires, things that make us trip in life. If it's depression, if it's temptation, if whatever it is, these are things that exist. And we have to know that they're real. And we have to know that they're dangerous and they can come at us. And if we're aware of that, then we won't underestimate it. We will do tachbulos, we'll do tricks, we'll use different ways to think and deal with it. But if we think, we're strong, no, I don't have a problem. I'll never do such a thing. If a person takes that approach, he will find himself very easily failing because he thinks he's above that. And you see it in life. You see people that think that they're above and they won't have this issue and they'll never have a problem. Those people often find themselves at the bottom of the barrel because they thought they're so clever and they don't need help and they know how to do it and they're the best, right? When a person thinks that, he doesn't realize he's underestimating his enemy, his desires, his drive, his whatever exists, and therefore he fails. People sometimes say, I never knew depression could be so difficult. We have to know depression is a real thing and it's a difficult thing. And that's why we have to be so aware of it, that if a person starts feeling down or things like that, he has to start working on how to pick himself up already at the get-go. Don't think, oh, no, it's not serious. No, depression is a dangerous thing, and one has to be aware of that and deal with it as soon as possible and try and develop mechanism to grow and develop happiness and deal with it. So that's if you don't underestimate it. But if you underestimate it, I'll never become really depressed, and then a person, God forbid, could find himself in real trouble. Okay, let's continue a little bit more.
Our sages of blessed memory were referring to this when they said in Eruvin, it would have been better for a person not to have been created than to have been created. Though now that he's been created, he should examine his deeds, and others say he should probe his deeds. These two terms are in reality...
Which in Hebrew, it's yefashfesh and yemashmesh. So they're very similar. And he's going to explain these two analogies, what they mean. Yeah?
These two terms are in reality two very beneficial and useful teachings. Examination of one's deeds entails an overall investigation of one's deeds to determine whether there are any deeds among them that should not be performed because they conflict with the Eternal's mitzvahs and statutes. Anything of this nature must be eradicated from the world. Probing, however, entails the investigation of even one's good deeds. One must investigate and observe if these deeds contain any aspect which is not good or something which is partly bad, and that he must remove and destroy.
Right. So he's explaining it like this. There's your mashmesh and your fashmesh. Your mashmesh is when I check out and I look at, your fashmesh is when I look and I'm like you have a closet of clothes and you go through the clothes. So that's your fashmesh. I'm looking through them. I say, oh, this clothes is a good clothes. This dress or just pants is good. I want to keep it. This shirt I want to throw out. This shirt I want to keep. This shirt I want to throw out. That's like looking at your deeds. So you're kind of looking at every action. Say, okay, I want to learn more. I don't want to watch so many movies. I want to make sure I don't watch reality TV that's full of nonsense, whatever. And I don't want to, or I want to be reading more books. So I want to spend more to do university properly. Whatever you're looking at, you're kind of looking at every action on its own and kind of seeing which actions I want to keep doing and which actions I want to stop doing. And the actions I want to stop doing, we try and eradicate it and throw it out. That's the first step. And then he says, the Mesilat Yesharim, there's also in every action, there's elements of the action. Meaning, okay, when I learn, example, let's say I learn, but half of the time I'm learning, I'm talking, just having normal conversations about the world or whatever. So yes, I'm learning and I want to keep that. But when I look into my learning, I see, well, I'm not learning serious enough. I'm not writing notes, or I'm not remembering it, or I'm talking in the middle too much. I should be more focused on my learning. Then that's called yemashmesh, which means it's touching the clothing and checking if the clothing is a good material or not. That's lemashmesh. It means to feel it, to touch it. So you want to first look through and see which one you want to keep, but then and which one you want to throw out. But then also you want to touch and see what's the fabric of every clothing. What is it made from? Which means every mitzvah or every deed that I do, what's the fabric of the deed that I do? And I want to clarify that deed. I'll give you an example where sometimes you can make this mistake. When I was a rabbi at Sydney, I don't know if I told you if I was a rabbi of a community before I became a rabbi dealing with uni students. Anyway, so when I was in Sydney, I used to go into the city and I used to give a shiur there to a bunch of bankers and whoever works in the city. Anyways, after that, we would daven mincha. It was in the great synagogue. So, they say about the Sydney, great is not central and central is not great. Yeah. Anyway, so they took me to, they were davening in the shul on the side. So I was davening in the great synagogue on the side there, and there's a little shul in the corner, and we're davening. And walks in a guy, what we call a meshulach. A meshulach is a guy that collects money. He comes from Israel and they come collecting. They go through people's houses and they ask for donations and people give them and they take that back home to Israel and they support their families or the institution, whatever it is. So this guy walks in. We're in the middle of Shmoneh Esrei. Soon they're going to start Chazar Sashatz. And he starts schmoozing to the rabbi, to the assistant rabbi there, Rabbi, can't remember his name. Anyways, starts schmoozing to him. Rabbi Garber. He starts schmoozing to him and talking to him, and it's in the middle of people are davening, and these are guys that took off work to come daven. Like, come on, and then after they start repeating the Shmoneh Esrei, the guy jumps to attention and starts davening with the chazan, but he didn't prepare, right? So he doesn't have a siddur. So he starts turning around and pointing, give me a siddur. And I'm like standing there. I said, you know what? After davening, I'm going to go up to this guy and I'm going to tell him exactly what I think about his behavior. It's disgusting. It's embarrassment. It's a chillah. It's a disgrace of God's name, the way this guy's behaving. And I really wanted to tell him off. And I was really upset with him. Like this, look what he did. But then after, I was thinking to myself that this guy had a jacket and hat on. And the only other person in the room that had a jacket and hat on was myself. Which means this guy the reason I'm so upset is not because the disgrace of God's name. It's because the disgrace of people with black hats and jackets, right? I'm more concerned about my name. Meaning if this guy would walk in with some datilo miyamak on his head, srugi, as we call it, I would be, oh yeah, of course, modern orthodoxy. What do you expect? Do you expect any better? Right? I'll be all comfortable and happy with that behavior. And I'll be like, this is why I don't hold of these people, right? So I don't care about God's name. I care about my name. The reason I want to tell this guy off is because I care about my name. But if I didn't look into the action, what would I think? Here I am, a righteous man, and I'm going to go and tell him off. And I wouldn't be Yemashmesh. I wouldn't check the fabric of the action. I would say, oh, this is an action of telling someone off for disgracing God's name. But if you start looking into it, you realize you don't really care about God's name. You care about your own name. You don't care that this is disrespectful to God, that someone behaves like this during davening. You care that this is disrespect to the religious sect of Judaism that you represent, right? So maybe that was an excuse for me to not having to confront him. Maybe I didn't want to confront him, but at the same time, maybe it was actually that I didn't want to. The reason I wanted to confront him was only for my own arrogance or dignity or respect, whatever words we want to be. If we don't want to be so harsh on myself, so I would say, respect or dignity, right? But really, it was all about the black hat. Not about Hashem, not about God. So one has to check his actions. That's what we're pointing out. So the Mesilat Yesharim is saying two things. Look at the actions. Which action to keep? Which action to throw out? Reality TV, definitely to throw out. Learning, definitely to keep. Right? Movies, but one has to check that. Then, in the actions that I actually do right, when I do learn, how am I learning? When I do deal with my parents and respect them, how do I respect them? Do I respect them enough? Do I not? Right? And so on. That's the two approaches to start acquiring our character traits and developing properly. That's what we call the first step of Zehirut, which we said is to calculate our life and look at our deeds. If someone does that, he's going to start growing. So again, just to summarize what we learned today. First step is to look at action and decide what is good things, what is bad. The example I gave is sleep. Is to sleep good, or should I try and minimize the amount of sleep? Or attitudes, good attitude versus a bad attitude, how important it is to have a good attitude. Then the second step is to start looking into the actions I do and see which actions are connected to what I feel is good and which actions are not. And then in the actions that I'm actually doing, to see what's the fabric of the action. Does it have in it the right fabric, or is it in it all these other things? Right? So that's the steps that we want to take for growth in our world. Shkoyach, everybody. Any questions? I guess not. That was clear. Wow. Zoom never has questions. You know that. You realized. It's like hard to get people to ask questions. Okay. Shkoyach, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Don, we missed you, man.
Hey,
We missed you.
when?